Ethan always believed that dreams never come true. He was wrong. On Earth, Ethan lived a small and quiet life. The world around him was loud, broken, and tired. Cities were full of smoke. People were angry. Wars never ended. Every day felt the same: wake up, survive, sleep. But Ethan had one strange dream. He dreamed of a peaceful world, a world ruled by giant women, a world with no war, no hunger, and no fear. In his dream, the giants were kind. They protected the small. They ruled with calm voices and gentle hands. Humans lived safely under their care. It sounded impossible. It sounded stupid, but it was the only dream that made Ethan smile. Then one day, everything changed. Scientists announced a discovery that shocked the world. A door to another world had opened. A real world, a living world. Through a glowing portal, cameras showed tall cities made of white stone and shining metal. Flying lights moved through the sky like birds. And then they appeared. Giant women. They were beautiful, powerful, and massive. Some were 50 feet tall. Some were even taller. Their voices were calm, deep, and confident. They spoke of peace. They spoke of order. They spoke of a perfect future. They called their world a paradise. The giant leaders sent a message to Earth. Humans are welcome, they said. There is no war here. No hunger. No sickness. People cried. Governments agreed. Volunteers stepped forward. Ethan was one of them. When he stepped through the portal, his heart raced. Light surrounded him. His body felt light, almost floating. Then his feet touched the ground. The air was clean. The sky was bright blue. Giant buildings rose like mountains. Every sound felt soft and calm. Ethan looked up. A giant woman stood nearby. Her shadow covered the ground like night. She wore silver armor and looked down at the humans with curious eyes. She smiled. Ethan felt safe. For a moment, the humans were taken to a large open area. Giant women stood around them, talking to each other. Their words sounded friendly, but Ethan could not understand their language. Then something strange happened. One giant woman leaned down and reached toward the crowd. Her fingers were larger than cars. She gently picked up a human man between two fingers. The man screamed. The giant woman laughed. Not an evil laugh. Not an angry one. A playful laugh. She lifted the man closer to her face and turned him around like a toy. So small, she said in broken English. The other giant smiled. Ethan felt cold fear crawl into his chest. The man was placed into a large glass container with air holes. The giant woman tapped the glass and walked away. No one stopped her. No one cared. Ethan looked around. Other humans were silent. Some were crying. Some were frozen in shock. This was not the dream. Humans were taken to a special zone. Small buildings surrounded by high walls. Giant guards watched them from above. Signs were placed in giant language and English. Human preserve, protected species. Protected. That word sounded kind, but it felt like a cage. Ethan watched as giant women walked past the walls. Some pointed. Some laughed. Some took pictures. To them, humans were not people. They were interesting creatures. At night, Ethan lay on a small bed and stared at the ceiling. The sounds of giant footsteps shook the ground like thunder. He remembered his dream. The paradise. The gentle giants. He realized something painful. The giants never said humans were equals. Only welcome. The next morning, Ethan saw something he would never forget. A group of giant girls were playing near the human zone. They were throwing a metal ball to each other. One throw went wrong. The ball fell. It crushed an empty human building like paper. The giants laughed again. Careful, one of them said casually. We almost broke their house. Almost. Ethan's hands trembled. That was the moment he understood the truth. This world was not a paradise. It was a beautiful cage, and humans were inside it. As the sun set behind the giant city, Ethan whispered to himself. This dream was a mistake. And far above him, unseen, giant eyes were already watching him closely. Ethan stopped counting days. Time moved differently in the giant world. The sun rose slowly. The nights were long and quiet, broken only by heavy footsteps that shook the ground. Every step reminded Ethan how small he was. Humans lived inside the human preserve. Tall metal walls surrounded the zone. Giant guards watched from towers above. They did not carry weapons. They did not need them. Their size was enough. At first, the giants brought food and water. Clean food. Fresh water. No one went hungry. But something felt wrong. The giants decided when humans ate. When they slept. When they were allowed outside. Humans did not choose anything. Ethan noticed how the giants looked at them. Not with hate. Not with love. With curiosity. Like children looking at ants. Some giant women visited the preserve every day. They bent down, pointed, and talked in their deep voices. That one walks strange. That one looks weak. This one is interesting. Sometimes a giant hand reached down and picked a human up. Study time, the guard said calmly. The humans never came back the same. One day, Ethan's friend Mark was taken. Mark was loud and brave. He always said the giants would learn to respect humans. He believed kindness would save them. A giant woman lifted Mark gently and placed him on her palm. Mark tried to smile. He waved. The giant woman smiled back. Then she walked away. Mark returned 2 days later. He did not speak. His eyes were empty. His hands shook. When Ethan asked what happened, Mark only whispered, "They don't see us as people." That night, Mark cried until morning. Ethan felt anger grow inside him. Slow. Heavy. Hot. Humans began to understand the rules of the cage. Do not run. Do not shout. Do not gather in large groups. Breaking rules meant punishment. Punishment was not pain. It was isolation. A human could be placed alone inside a clear cube, lifted high into the air, and displayed for hours. Giants would walk past and look up. Look how small, they said. Fear spread through the preserve. But fear did not break Ethan. It sharpened him. He started to observe. He watched how giants moved, how they talked, how they solved problems. He noticed something strange. They were strong, but slow thinkers. When machines broke, they struggled. When systems failed, they argued. Their world was powerful, but not flexible. Ethan remembered Earth. Humans survived because they adapted. One evening, Ethan saw a giant woman standing near the wall. She was different, taller than most. Calm eyes. No laughter. She watched the humans silently. Her name, Ethan later learned, was Lyra. Lyra did not point. She did not smile. She only watched. When a child tripped and fell, Lyra moved closer. Slowly, carefully, she placed a small barrier near the wall, so giants would not step too close. It was a small act, but Ethan noticed. Days later, a warning alarm echoed through the giant city. Lights flashed. Giant voices filled the air with confusion. Something had gone wrong. A power system failed. Parts of the city went dark. Giants argued. They pulled heavy machines. Nothing worked. Ethan looked at the broken cables near the preserve. He understood them. Humans once built things like this. He stepped forward and shouted, "I can help." The guards ignored him, but Lyra heard. She bent down, her massive face close to the wall. "You," she asked calmly. "You are small." Ethan's heart pounded. "Yes," he said, "but I know how this works." Lyra watched him for a long moment. Then she made a decision. She opened the gate. Giants gasped. A human walking freely was unheard of. Ethan entered the giant city, his legs shaking. He pointed, explained, and guided with simple words and hand signs. Minutes passed. The lights came back on. The city breathed again. Silence filled the air. Giants stared at Ethan. Fear mixed with something new. Respect. Lyra looked down at him and spoke softly. "You are small," she said, "but your mind is sharp." Ethan met her eyes. "For humans," he said, "the mind is how we survive." High above them, the giant council watched. And for the first time, humans were no longer just pets. They were a possible threat. After the power came back, nothing felt the same. Ethan was taken back to the human preserve, but the walls felt closer now. Giant guards watched him more carefully. Their calm faces were gone. Now, there was caution in their eyes. High above the city, the giant council talked for hours. "A human fixed what we could not," one voice said. "He is dangerous," another replied. "He is small," a third argued. Size is power. But doubt had already entered their minds. Inside the preserve, humans gathered around Ethan. They whispered his name like a secret. "You spoke to them. You walked free. You fixed their city." Ethan did not feel proud. He felt afraid, because now he knew the truth. Giants are not gods. They were just bigger beings, and that made them afraid. Days passed. No humans were taken for study. No giant hands reached down. The giants watched instead. Always watching, Ethan used the time to work. He found old broken tools stored near the preserve. Simple machines. Giant designs. Poor planning. No backup systems. Humans helped quietly. They cleaned wires. They repaired small parts giants could not handle with their large fingers. They shared knowledge from Earth. Basic logic, simple plans, step-by-step thinking. Humans worked at night, in silence, because humans had learned something long ago. Survival favors the careful. Lyra visited often. She stood near the wall and listened. "Why do you help each other?" she asked one evening. Ethan looked up at her. "Because we are weak alone," he said. "Together we live." Lyra thought about this. In the giant world, strength solved everything. Or so they believed. Until now. One morning, alarms screamed again. Louder than before. The ground shook. Giant voices filled the sky with panic. A floating transport tower lost control. It leaned toward the city center. If it fell, thousands of giants would be crushed. Giants ran. They shouted orders. They pulled cables. Nothing worked. The tower kept falling. Lyra looked toward the preserve. She made a choice. She broke the wall. Not to destroy, but to open. "Human," she said loudly. "Help us." Ethan ran. Humans followed. They climbed machines. They cut power lines. They changed angles. They used basic balance rules giants never needed before. Minutes felt like hours. Then the tower stopped. The city stood silent. Then came thunderous cheers. Giants looked at humans differently now. Not as toys. Not as pets. As tools. That scared Ethan even more. That night, the Giant Council made a decision. Humans would no longer stay only in the preserve. They would work for the giants. Humans were sent to factories, power systems, and control rooms. They solved problems giants could not. They fixed mistakes giants never noticed. The giant world became stronger because of humans. But freedom did not come with usefulness. Humans were watched more closely than ever. Guards followed them. Drones hovered above. Ethan felt the weight of it. "We are helping our cage grow stronger," he whispered to Lyra one night. Lyra said nothing. She already knew. One evening, Ethan overheard something he was never meant to hear. Two giant officials spoke above him, unaware he could understand some of their words. Humans adapt too fast. They learn our systems. They think ahead. This will not end well. Ethan's blood ran cold. That night, he gathered the humans. "We are not guests," he said quietly. "We are not workers." "What are we then?" someone asked. Ethan looked at their tired faces. "We are a risk," he said. "And they know it." Silence filled the room. Then a child asked softly, "What do we do?" Ethan took a breath. "We prepare," he said. "Not to fight, to survive." High above the city, Lyra stood alone, staring at the stars. For the first time in her life, she felt fear. Not fear of size, not fear of strength, fear of something small that could think. The giant world changed overnight. Guards doubled. Drones filled the sky. Human workers were separated and counted every morning. No one said it out loud, but everyone felt it. The giants were afraid. Ethan saw it in their eyes. Giants no longer laughed near humans. They no longer played close to the preserve. They spoke in low voices and watched every movement. Fear made them dangerous. The giant council met again. "Humans think too much," one giant said. "They fix what we break," said another. "They're learning our systems," a third growled. A tall giant woman stood up. Her voice was cold. "If they grow stronger," she said, "we will grow weaker." The decision was made. Human control protocols were activated. Humans were no longer allowed to work freely. They were chained with tracking bands. Any human who spoke too much or asked questions was removed. No one knew where they were taken. One morning, Ethan noticed Mark was missing. No warning. No sound. Just gone. That was the moment Ethan knew. Waiting was no longer an option. Ethan gathered the humans in a storage area under the city. He spoke quietly, but his voice was firm. "They will never see us as equals," he said. "They will never trust us." And now, They're afraid of us. Fear spread through the group. Are we going to fight? Someone asked. Ethan shook his head. We can't fight giants, he said. But we can outthink them. Humans began to move differently. They worked slower. They made small mistakes on purpose. They shared false solutions. They hid tools. They learned every system, power, transport, defense. Giants thought humans were tired. They were wrong. Lyra noticed the change. One night, she stood before Ethan, her shadow covering him. You are planning something, she said. Ethan did not deny it. They will destroy us, he replied. Unless we prove something first. Lyra's voice was quiet. You want respect? Yes, Ethan said. Not mercy. Days later, it happened. A giant transport grid failed across the city. Lights went out. Defense towers shut down. Air traffic froze. Chaos exploded. Giants shouted orders. They pushed buttons. Nothing worked. Ethan stood still. Umans baita. Minutes passed. The council realized the truth. Only humans could fix this. Lyra stepped forward and raised her voice. Release them, she said. The council hesitated. Then the ground shook. A defense tower collapsed in the distance. Release them, Lyra repeated. The chains were removed. Humans ran, not in panic, but with purpose. They moved in teams. They repaired systems in the exact order needed. They restored power piece by piece. The city came back to life. Silence followed. Then anger. A giant general pointed at Ethan. This was planned, she roared. They did this. Ethan stood tall, even though he was small. Yes, he said. We did. Gasps filled the air. Ethan spoke loudly, his voice echoing through speakers humans had secretly connected. We do not want your world, he said. We want a place in it. You used us, studied us, feared us. He paused. But you forgot something. Giants watched him. We are human, Ethan said. And we survive. The council argued. Some wanted punishment. Some wanted peace. But the army had already decided. Giant soldiers marched toward the human zone. Lyra stepped between them and the humans. If you attack them, she said, you lose your future. The general laughed. They are small, she said. We are giants. Lyra looked down at Ethan. And they think, she replied. Siren screamed. The first giant army step shook the ground. Humans locked eyes with Ethan. This was no longer about survival. This was about proving something. As the giants advanced, Ethan whispered the truth humans had always known. Size decides who wins a fight. He looked up, calm and steady. But the mind decides who wins a war. The ground shook as the giant army moved forward. Each step felt like the end of the world. Buildings trembled. Dust rose into the air. Giant soldiers surrounded the human zone, their shadows covering everything. Humans stood together. They had no weapons, no armor, no strength to fight giants. But they did not run. Ethan stood at the front. He looked small, weak, easy to crush, yet his eyes were calm. The giant general raised her hand. This ends now, she said. Humans will be contained forever. Lyra stepped forward again. If you do this, she warned, you destroy what makes this world strong. The general ignored her. Size is law, she said. Ethan took a slow breath. No, he said. Size is fear. The giants paused. Ethan continued. His voice carried through the city systems humans had prepared. You build a perfect world, he said. But perfection made you careless. You never needed to plan for failure. Screens across the city turned on. Data appeared. Power maps. Transport routes. Defense systems. All connected. All dependent. We learned your world, Ethan said. Not to rule it. Not to destroy it. He looked up at the army. But to show you something. With one signal, humans activated a controlled shutdown. Not chaos. Balance. Defense towers powered down. Transport froze safely. Energy systems slowed, not stopped. The city remained standing. But it was helpless. Giants gasped. You see, Ethan said, we could end everything. The silence was heavy. But we won't. Lyra understood first. You are choosing restraint, she said softly. Yes, Ethan replied. Because that is what separates us from fear. The giant council watched in shock. The general lowered her hand. You could have destroyed us, she said. Yes, Ethan answered. And you could have crushed us from the start. He stepped forward. But both paths lead to nothing. Ethan pointed to the humans behind him. We don't want to replace you, he said. We want to stand with you. The giants looked at the humans again. Not pets, not tools, not threats. People. Slowly, the army stepped back. The council spoke at last. This world was built on strength, the leader said. But strength alone is fragile. She looked down at Ethan. Humans will no longer live in cages. Walls around the human preserve were removed. Humans walked freely for the first time. New laws were written. Humans gained voice, choice, protection. Not because they were big, because they mattered. Days later, Ethan stood on a high platform beside Lyra. They watched giants and humans working together. Different sizes. Same purpose. You changed everything, Lyra said. Ethan shook his head. No, he replied. We reminded you. Lyra smiled. Of what? That paradise is not built by size, Ethan said. It is built by understanding. Far from Earth, a new world was born. Not ruled by giants. Not ruled by humans. But shared. And Ethan finally understood his dream. It was never about living under giants. It was about proving something simple. Humanity does not need to be the strongest. Humanity only needs to think. Fire story complete. Fire.